in particular for the enthusiastic welcome that was extended to our visitors and for making the year of return such a resounding success. But we are not yet done. We're building on the foundations of the year of return to a new level, the next stage of our re-engagement with the African diaspora with the theme, Beyond the Return. The government is seeking to build on the success, and we're putting measures in place to take us beyond the return. The Ministry of Tourism, under its eloquent leader, the Honorable Barbara Oting-Jesse, Member of Parliament for Prestia Huni Valley, and the rejuvenated Ghana Tourism Authority, under its dynamic Chief Executive, Akwesi Agyeman, are heading the charge to make our country an attractive and irresistible destination, a place of pilgrimage, a nation that everyone with a hint of African blood must visit at least once in their lifetime. I should thank two people in particular who have embraced their Ghanaian heritage and have played a key role in our effort to build lasting bridges between Ghana and African Americans. Hollywood star Boris Kujo and international marketing icon Bozoma St. John. We're grateful to both of them for leveraging their star power to attract thousands to the land of their fathers and to drive a fresh narrative that says Ghana is a land of opportunity. Visit, invest, make it your home. We appreciate deeply their contribution and that of many others to the success of the entire project. Speaker, I can testify to the renewed enthusiasm of around the world for our country. My trips to Germany, France, Austria, Japan, Russia, the Caribbean this past year have brought tangible dividends, and there are growing investments in Ghana from companies in those countries. The emphasis in our foreign relations remains with our immediate neighborhood, and that means ECOWAS and the African Union. And Ghana continues to play a leading role in making these organizations active and relevant to the changing needs of our region and continent. I cannot ignore the difficulties that currently exist in ECOWAS, especially with Nigeria, our age-old friend and largest member nation, closing its land borders for the past 5 months, and the instability and terrorist activity that is sadly blighting the lives of thousands in some parts of Nigeria and shedding innocent blood in the Sahel and in our neighbors to the north of our country. We're playing a positive role in the efforts being made within ECOWAS to bring this boundary impasse to an end, which will hopefully be sooner than later. The successful implementation of the Accra Initiative, involving the consistent collaboration and cooperation of intelligence and security heads from Ghana and her neighboring countries, namely Côte d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, Togo, Benin, Mali, and Nigeria, continues to be our concrete contribution to the fight against terrorism in our region. Through joint security operations, such as Kwandungu and the ongoing Operation Conquered Fist, we continue to reinforce the security of our northwestern, northern, and northeastern borders to guard against any infiltrations into the country. All of us have a vested interest in helping to maintain the peace, stability, and security of Ghana in the current troubling circumstances of our region. Speaker, we never lose sight of the fact that there are many Ghanaian communities in all parts of the world, and our missions abroad have been charged anew to be alive to their needs. I'm happy to report that Ghanaians in the diaspora are very much involved in whatever happens in their home country. Wherever I go, I meet with them, and they're often very well informed and insistent on accountability from government officials. Let us never forget that the remittances from Ghanaians abroad constitute a healthy part of our economy and I always encourage them to bring their acquired skills to invigorate the political and economic landscape. Mr. Speaker, it is important that I make special mention of Ghana's relationship with the People's Republic of China, which has grown exponentially over the past few years. The dramatic economic transformation of China in the past 2 decades is a marvel to the world and a lesson for the rest of us in the developing world. We've entered into various agreements with China, the lead one obviously being the Sino-Hydro Agreement, which seeks to deliver many infrastructural projects. Mr. Speaker, today, China is unfortunately battling an outbreak of the deadly COVID-19 virus. We sympathize with the people of China at this time of great trouble. I have written to President Xi Jinping to convey to the government and the people of China the solidarity and sympathy of the compassionate people of Ghana. We trust that with the tough decisions being implemented to curb the spread of the virus, this nightmare will be over, and soon they will recover from its devastating social and economic impact. There is a sizable Ghanaian community in China, and our government through our embassy has been working with the Chinese authorities to find the best way to deal with this situation. The Ghanaian community includes 4,760 students, out of which 300 students are studying in Hubei province and 200 in the city of Wuhan, the epicenter of the outbreak. We have a delicate situation on our hands, Mr. Speaker, and it does not benefit anybody to try to score points by introducing ill-judged politics into this ongoing medical conundrum and humanitarian tragedy. Most of these students are on Chinese government scholarships, and since the crisis started, the Chinese government has done its best to keep them supplied with food and other logistics. The Ghana government, through its mission, also supplies logistics, and the embassy has given, so far, 500 United States dollars to each student. However, we know that no amount of logistics will make up for the extreme stress and trauma that these young people are going through, and I treat members of this honorable House to set an example by helping to pour oil over troubled waters instead of instigating tension and spreading fear and panic among the young people. The government is in constant touch with experts on the subject, who advise that the basic principle of public health is to confine the disease to the area of its origin. But we have not ruled out the option of evacuating the students from Wuhan if that becomes necessary. We have put in place measures to ensure that their evacuation back into Ghana, if it happens, does not lead to the dissemination of fear and panic amongst the general population. Mr. Speaker, I've spent time talking about how well we're doing on the international scene and the many plaudits that are showered on Ghana wherever I go. But the test of how well our country is doing and can and should be measured by how Ghanaians themselves feel about their situation. 10 days ago, our Vice President and Chairman of the Economic Management Team, Alhaji Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, made a presentation at a town hall meeting in Kumasi, in which he gave a detailed and comprehensive account of the performance of the economy under 3 years of management by an MPP government led by me. He went to great lengths to identify the promises that had been made in the 2016 manifesto that we took to the country. This document spelled the agreement between the elected government and the people of Ghana. I do not intend to go through all over again the meticulous accounting that was done in Kumasi 10 years ago. It is enough to say 10 days ago, it is enough to say that it being Dr. Bawumia everything he said was backed by data and his customary fact-checking. He ended by asserting that 78% of the promises we made solemnly to the people of Ghana have been or are in the process of being fulfilled. There has so far been no factual challenge to his compelling testimony. This week, in 3 years, we've reduced inflation to its lowest level, 7.8% in January 2020, since 1992. For the first time in over 40 years, we've had a fiscal deficit below 5% of GDP for 3 years in a row. For the first time in over 20 years, the balance of trade, that is the difference between our exports and imports, has been in surplus for 3 consecutive years. Our current account deficit is shrinking, interest rates are declining, and the average annual rate of depreciation of the cedi is at its lowest for any first-term government in the Fourth Republic. Our economic growth has rebounded to place Ghana among the fastest-growing economies in the world for 3 years in a row, at an annual average of 7% GDP growth, up from 3.4% in 2016, the lowest in nearly 3 decades. The international investor community has recognized this development, resulting in Ghana today being the largest recipient of foreign direct investment in West Africa. The sovereign credit ratings agencies have upgraded our ratings and also improved the outlook for this year, notwithstanding the fact that it is an election year. This is a massive vote of confidence in the current management of the economy, as best illustrated by Ghana's successful issue of the longest dated Eurobond ever issued by a sub-Saharan African country, with investors placing 15 billion United States dollars of orders for Ghana's 41-year Eurobond. The 7-year bond attracted the lowest coupon rates ever for Ghana at 6.375%, compared with the 9.25% Ghana had to pay for a similar Eurobond issue in 2016. No wonder Bloomberg, the reputable global financial media house, earlier this week highlighted Ghana as a top candidate for an economic leap in Africa. This expression of confidence is important because it will lead to enhanced investments in our economy and the accompanying greater numbers of jobs. Mr. Speaker, we inherited a collapsing financial sector that has led to failing banks and considerable agony to many people. The government is having to conjure 13 billion cedis to pay the 4.6 million affected customers of the banks. This is money that we can ill afford, and which would have gone to fund the many things that our communities are crying for. Properly utilized, 13 billion Ghana cedis would work wonders with our perennial infrastructure deficit. But we did think long and hard about paying all the customers of the failed banks, and we believe we made the right decision. I would like to repeat that all depositors of the savings and loans and microfinance institutions, including DKM, which collapsed in 2015, will receive 100% of their deposits too once the validation exercise is concluded. And I'm informed that the receiver of the savings and loans and microfinance institutions will begin on Monday, the 24th of February, making payments to their customers. These monies, totaling 5 billion cedis, being in addition to 13 billion cedis being paid to the customers of the failed banks. We hope that lessons have been learned, and this will serve as a healthy caution to those who are offered unrealistic interest rates on deposits. I do not think it will be possible to repeat this grand pay-up in another lifetime. I want to assure Ghanaians that we're going to hold those who have been responsible for these failures of financial institutions, the supervisors and management of these institutions, accountable. A process which has already started. We expect that those whose job it is to supervise the banks and other financial institutions will do their jobs honestly and competently. I'm very encouraged by the many corporate governance measures that have already been put in place by the Bank of Ghana under the strong leadership of Governor Ernest Addison to mitigate such bank failures in the future. Thanks to the banking sector cleanup, today I'm happy to say that Ghana's weak banking sector that we inherited is now well capitalized, better managed, sound and liquid, and the banks are now increasing their lending to the private sector to help propel the transformation of the economy beyond aid. Mr. Speaker, a year ago, I started my speech here in Parliament with a reference to the happy events in Gabon and my presence at the inskinment of the new Yana Mahama Abukari II. I'm glad to report that about a month ago, the now firmly in place Yana paid a historic visit to Jubilee House. I do not think Jubilee House has ever witnessed such scenes. It would be fair to say that the Yana and his entourage certainly shook up the place, and nobody would have forgotten that dramatic, colorful visit in a hurry. Gabon is gradually regaining her self-confidence, and I hope the House will join me in wishing that ancient kingdom the goodwill, patience, and tolerance her elder sons and daughters need to continue the healing process and grow from strength to strength. Mr. Speaker, the peace that currently prevails in Gabon is required for progress and development throughout the country. We've spent a lot of money to ensure that the security agencies that are charged with maintaining law and order and keeping us safe are well-resourced to enable them perform their duties. Police numbers have been increased and will be increased further until we meet the recommended ratio. The police have been provided with more vehicles and equipment than they've ever had, including over 600 vehicles and 3 incoming helicopters. There are now more opportunities for police officers to undergo training on the job to make them better prepared for work in our communities and keep us safe. We're building upon and improving the capacity of the cybercrime unit to confront and neutralize the criminal and dark underbelly of modern technology and the cyber world. The government will continue to work with the management of the police service to ensure that there's proper and adequate training in modern policing methods and the equipping of the service to enable them deal with crime. Mr. Speaker, government is committed to improving the conditions of service of all security personnel, including the police. But nevertheless, I think it is my duty also to point out that public perception of the police continues not to be the best, and they must make a comprehensive effort to earn the confidence of the public. We cannot run a country of law and order without a well-trained and accomplished police service that has the respect and confidence of the people. I acknowledge the work they do, but I urge them to work harder on their reputation. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to report that the equipment and rehabilitation effort is not only in the police service, but also in all the other services as well. I must make mention of the fire service and the prison service, where the numbers have been increased with fresh recruitment. There are positive things happening in the prison service, with opportunities being made available for inmates to acquire skills. I note in particular with a lot of satisfaction that this past year, 376 prison inmates pass various exams in the National Vocational and Technical Institutes, junior high schools, and senior high schools. Mr. Speaker, the Ghana Armed Forces continue to perform creditably in discharging their duty of defending the territorial integrity of the country. The government has retooled and equipped them to keep them in the desired state of readiness. When the government amended LI 1332, which extended the run-out date from 25 years to 30 years for the other ranks, it led to the creation of new ranks within the structures of the armed forces and to a subsequent rationalization of wages and salaries for all ranks within the armed forces. Government is tackling the long-standing housing problem that has faced our armed forces. Over 500 million cedis is being invested in housing projects of varying sizes for the men and women of the armed forces and in refurbishing the military academy and training schools in Teshi. Our soldiers have been active along the northern borders to protect our country and its people since the eruption of terrorist activities in Burkina Faso. They have also been working with the police since July 2017 in Operation Vanguard, which was set up to deal with the activities of illegal miners. Mr. Speaker, the mention of Operation Vanguard would seem to be at the appropriate time to deal with the subject of galamsey, the popular name that has been coined for illegal mining. When we came into office in January 2017, galamsey activities were rampant in many parts of our country. Our lands, forests, and river bodies were being systematically degraded and polluted without any care. And this had been the case for several years. And indeed, the previous NDC government had given up the fight against galamsey. We determined that this was an intolerable situation, and we owed it to generations yet unborn to tackle the problem and save our environment. I was very much aware that the lure of gold, once it takes hold, drives away all rationality. That is not a Ghanaian characteristic. It is a human characteristic that has been displayed all over the world throughout the ages. I was therefore not under any illusions about the size and scope of the problem we're taking on. But I was cheered by the support from a large part of the population that has also recognized the danger posed by the degradation of our lands and water bodies and the needless deaths of young people who are being buried alive in makeshift mining pits. I welcomed in particular the media coalition which was formed in July 2017 that lent its support to the fight against galamsey. As I have said on countless occasions, the battle we launched was not against mining. It would be unrealistic for anyone to suggest there should be no mining in Ghana. The Almighty, having blessed us with all these precious minerals, must surely be in agreement that we'd find ways to use them to develop our country and for the benefit of our communities. However, taking the minerals out should not lead to the destruction of our water bodies and forests or endanger the sustainable existence of our country. What is more, it was obvious to all that the small-scale mining that had always taken place in our communities had been transformed into something unrecognizable in our history by the introduction of the monster machinery that dug up riverbeds and turned serene streams into ugly, toxic, muddy, frothy ponds. It was no longer small-scale mining, and it was certainly no longer local community mining when we saw the influx of foreigners into the most rural, isolated, and densest of forests. It was no longer local community mining when rivers, hitherto considered as sacred, were being abused and polluted. We started with the banning of all small-scale mining, and after about a year of the campaign, we made some progress as some rivers showed signs of coming back to life. The University of Mines and Technology at Takwa took on the role of training local people in sustainable mining. And by the time the ban on small-scale mining was lifted last year, almost 4,000 had received the training. The Honorable House also did its part by amending the Mining Act to raise the penalties for illegal mining and prohibiting foreign nationals from participating in any way in small-scale mining. The nation is grateful for the intervention of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, the threat posed to the future of our country by galamsey is grave, and we cannot shirk our responsibilities in dealing with it. I'm appealing to the media coalition not to be daunted by the difficulties in the fight against galamsey. The government will not weaken its stance and welcomes the continuous support of the media coalition. The Interministerial Committee Against Illegal Mining has been working hard and has had some successes. Under the auspices of this committee, the Ministry of Local Government has formulated and is implementing the Alternative Livelihood Program in 35 severely affected galamsey districts across the country. Last year, 500 youth, mainly engaged in illegal mining, were trained and graduated in vocational and technical skills from community development, vocational and technical institutions. They've been provided with startup tools and equipment. An additional 607 youth are currently undergoing similar training, 240 of whom are in the community development institutions, while 367 are attached to master craftsmen through apprenticeship at the community level. Operation Vanguard has been largely successful, even though problems still remain. Mining with impunity on water bodies and in forest reserves has declined. More than 4,000 miners have received training in sustainable mining. The number of individuals dying in collapsed mining tunnels and pits in the few unauthorized locations left has reduced by more than 90%. Operation Vanguard has been particularly effective in helping to restore the order which has permitted the reopening of the famous Obuasi mine of AngloGold Ashanti. The community mining program, Mr. Speaker, the community mining program has been well received by the population, and young men and women who did not have the resources to acquire concessions and excavators and other mining inputs, and therefore had to do galamsey, have moved into legal community mining. Now, more than 20,000 individuals are earning their incomes legitimately in the community mines in Akrofrom, Echuma Nwabeja, Echuma Mpunia, Adansi North, Amansi Central, Wassa Amenfi East, and Wassa East districts. Since the introduction of the community mining program, there have been no deaths due to the collapse of tunnels and pits. The Interministerial Committee, along with Operation Vanguard, were determined to disrupt galamsey activities by confiscating equipment that were employed in these activities. In this regard, 12,000 Shangfine machines that go on the river and scoop up the riverbed were seized and destroyed on site. Some excavators were also seized, and a number of them have gone missing. The police have arrested and charged some of the alleged culprits, and investigations are ongoing. No one involved will be shielded, no matter what their positions or political colors are. Mr. Speaker, we've made significant strides over the last 3 years in our fight against corruption, despite of the skepticism of people with questionable records. We've strengthened the legal framework to fight corruption with the help of this House by passing into law the Witness Protection Act, 2018 Act 959, the Office of the Special Prosecutor Act, 2018 Act 959, the Right to Information Act, 2019 Act 989, and the Companies Act, 2019 Act 992, which provides a framework for enacting a beneficial ownership register. The government has increased budgetary allocations to all the accountability institutions of state, including the Parliament of Ghana, the Judiciary, SHRAJ, EYOCO, the Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Justice, the Auditor General, the Office of the Special Prosecutor, and the Ghana Police Service, with annual increases between 25% and 34% between 2017 and 2019. We have also implemented a change from the opaque allocation of Ghana's oil blocks to a more transparent allocation process, and advisedly so. The opaque period, 2013 to 2016, saw, according to the Ministry of Energy, the signature of 13 petroleum agreements, from which 14 wells were to be drilled. Not a single well was drilled. In contrast, in my time, over the last 3 years, there have been 6 drilling campaigns on 3 different blocks, with others on the way. We will drill more and find more oil. Some 40 or more high-profile personalities are currently before the courts on various corruption charges, and most are in the pipeline. I would like to repeat that if evidence of corruption is presented, no one will be spared, regardless of position or political affiliation. No one is above the law. That is the true meaning of equality before the law. Mr. Speaker, as part of our strategy to modernize the economy, deliver government services efficiently, and curb corruption, Ghana has over the last 3 years embarked on a major program of digitization of the economy with significant success. At the end of last week, 9.2 million people have been registered on the national ID card, the Ghana card. Before the end of this year, Ghana will have a fully working national ID system, which will be a game changer for our nation. Mr. Speaker, we're also providing infrastructure to many Zongo communities across the country through the Zongo Development Fund. Mr. Speaker, we're seeing an improvement in the quality of our nation's sanitation, even though we still have a lot more to do. According to the Northern Regional Environmental Health Unit, in the 3 northern regions, that is Savannah, Northeast, and Northern, the number of open defecation-free communities has increased. ODF has increased from 5% as of June 2016 to some 58% as of July 2019. The latest data from the Ministry of Sanitation and Water Resources shows that ODF communities in Ghana as a whole have increased from 410 in 2016 to over 5,000 communities. Now that is progress, and it did not just happen. It took hard work, commitment, and the provision of infrastructure. In fulfillment of our manifesto commitment of toilets for all, we have built 13,800 toilets, which is largely responsible for this development. Mr. Speaker, we have not stopped building toilets. We will build more. Mr. Speaker, another good example of deliberate, well-thought-out policy executed through hard work and commitment that is generating dividends is what we've done about food and agriculture in the past 3 years. It bears repeating that Agriculture was very much in the doldrums when we came into office, with a growth rate of 2.9%. We introduced the program for planting for food and jobs and set about to make agriculture an attractive profession. We invested resources, expertise, and time, and the results have been impressive and rewarding. Growth rate in 2016 was 6.1%, and this increased to 6.4% last year. Increased production and high yields from foodstuffs like maize, rice, sorghum, groundnuts, soybean, cowpea, cassava, and plantain have led to a decrease in the wholesale prices in market centers in major food-producing areas. Furthermore, we're no longer importers of maize. We're reducing our dependence on rice imports and are now, in effect, net exporters of foodstuffs. Food prices are their lowest in decades. Mr. Speaker, I must provide some examples of what I mean by things not just happening by happenstance, but by deliberate and meticulous planning and competent execution. We recruited some 2,700 agricultural extension agents to give practical expertise on the farms. We're not yet at the United Nations recommended ratio of 1 extension officer to 500 farmers, but we're working to get there, and it is definitely a vast improvement on the decimated department we met on the assumption of office. With the support of Canada, 300 vehicles and 3,000 motor bicycles have been deployed around the country for ease of movement for those tasked to help the farmers. Once the foodstuffs are produced, we don't leave it to chance and risk not being able to sell and thereby discourage the farmers. The National Food and Buffer Stock Company, NAFCO, has been revitalized to enhance agricultural marketing and improve access to market. NAFCO is promoting institutional procurement of produce and sales to schools and hospitals. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to inform you that the Commodities Exchange in Ghana, which is fully operational, is promoting high productivity, price stability, increased exports, and reduced imports of commodities. Trading operations through an electronic trading platform commenced in November 2018. To increase storage capacity, 80 warehouses, each of a size of 1,000 metric tons, are being built around the country. 35 have been completed by the Ministry of Special Development Initiatives and 13 by the Ministry of Agriculture. The Ministry of Agriculture will complete the remaining 17 soon, and the Special Development Initiative Ministry will complete another 10 by June. In other words, Mr. Speaker, every part of the value chain is planned and accounted for. The diversification of the scheme ensures that there will be something to interest a wide variety of people. That is, it is not only foodstuffs that are on offer. The Planting for Export and Rural Development PERD module promotes the following tree crops: cashew, coffee, coconut, oil palm, mango, rubber, and shea. Parliament has contributed to the process of agricultural transformation by the establishment of the Tree Crop Development Authority, which is going to be responsible for husbanding the industries of these tree crops into full maturity and expand by 7-fold our earnings from agriculture. The Rearing for Food and Jobs RFJ program is developing a competitive and more efficient livestock industry that will increase domestic meat production and reduce importation of livestock. 265 small earth dams have also been completed under the One Village, One Dam initiative. More will be done this year. At the heart of all these efforts is the determination to make agriculture an attractive business to young, educated Ghanaians, and that is why modernization, mechanization, and the use of technology are all part of the scheme. Digital and internet maps of soil fertility status in the Northern Savannah Ecological Zone are being made available to facilitate informed decision-making on fertilizer formulation and application. If any more proof were needed that under this government, agriculture is a high-tech undertaking, Mr. Speaker, an electronic platform has been established to capture and monitor the activities of participating farmers. As of December 2019, 500,000 farmers had been biometrically registered. Mr. Speaker, it gives me great joy to be able to tell this House that modernization is finally coming to the fishing industry as well. New ways of doing things are being accepted, and our fisher folk are now ready to take a leap into scientific and sustainable methods of fishing. For 2 consecutive years now, our fisher folk have accepted a closed season and allowed fishes to spawn without disturbance in our waters. Constructions of the 10 long-promised, much-publicized landing sites in Senyabreku, Elmina, Mori, Mumford, Winneba, Gumwafete, Disco, Axim, Teshi, and Kita have finally started. Axim, Disco, Senyabreku, and Gumwafete will be completed by the end of this year, with the remainder being completed early next year. Construction of the Jamestown Harbor will commence in March, following the completion of technical work. Mr. Speaker, I'm looking forward to the business resource centers being built, helping the country to unearth some exciting young entrepreneurs. 37 of them have been completed. These centers are one-stop enterprise support centers that provide full range of business development services, investment facilitation and information services to entrepreneurs and business enterprises at the district level. On Monday, I was very pleased to be at Kijibi in the Oti region to commission one of the 37 BRCs that have been completed around the country. In November last year, I commissioned another one at the Fidrasi Asokore in the Ashanti region. The BRCs are all being equipped with modern IT infrastructure and networked through a virtual private network to facilitate efficient delivery of their operations. We have built 37. We're building 30 more. The young people that I met during the presidential pitch program, for example, give me a lot of hope and assure me as having the potential to benefit from the BRCs, the National Entrepreneurship and Innovations Plan, NEIP, and take on the world. Mr. Speaker, the government is aggressively pursuing its plans for industrial transformation. Whilst the Business Development Ministry works on bringing out entrepreneurial skills and encouraging young people to spot business opportunities, we're paying greater attention to making Ghana an easy place to do business and set up industries. Having won the bid to host the headquarters of the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA, in Accra, the government has provided a permanent office building to host the Secretariat, and with the appointment of the Secretary General in Addis Ababa 2 weeks ago at the recent AU Summit, the office will become operational by the end of next month. We extend our warm congratulations to the first Secretary General, Mr. Wamkele Meni, the young South African, and assure him that we'll give him our fullest cooperation to ensure he succeeds. Speaker, we launched the Ghana Automotive Development Policy in August last year, and it has so far attracted investment and commercial interest from some very big players, including Toyota, Volkswagen, Nissan, Renault, Hyundai, Sinotruk, and Suzuki. VW is building its plant in the North Industrial Area in Accra and is due to start production by the end of April. Sinotruk has begun assembling its trucks. Toyota is scheduled to start the assembly of vehicles in Tema in the last quarter of this year. We have high hopes for this new industry, which has come to join our own Kantanka. Speaker, we are determined at long last to exploit our large bauxite, manganese, and iron ore deposits, which will enable us to establish an integrated bauxite and aluminum industry and an iron and steel industry. The Ghana Integrated Bauxite and Aluminum Development Corporation and the Ghana Integrated Iron and Steel Corporation have been established by law as the vehicles for this exploitation. The processes are underway for the selection this year of joint venture partners for the development of the full value chain of these two multi-billion-dollar industries, which will give a tremendous boost to Ghanaian industrialization. Mr. Speaker, all our best-laid plans for industrialization will come to naught unless we have a reliable and reasonably priced energy source. It probably says something about the progress we have made, that in discussing the state of our nation, it takes a while even to get into our power supply matters. It gives me great pleasure to be able to say that we have overcome the Dumsor menace. But unfortunately, I cannot say that we have resolved all our energy problems. It is still work in progress. Further, the 5 years of energy crisis led to the signing of what can only be described as usurious contracts that have landed our country with a huge financial burden. The take-or-pay contracts resulted in the country being saddled with expensive excess power and are having to pay nearly $1 billion United States dollars in 2018 and 2019 for power we did not need. We're working to find a way out to ensure reliable power supply at a cost that makes us competitive in the region. In the meantime, the industrialization flagship project, One District, One Factory, is progressing and beginning to show dividends. A total of 181 projects spread across 112 districts are currently at various stages of implementation under the program. 58 companies already in operation, 26 projects currently under construction, 58 AFDB small-scale projects ready for soil cutting in the early part of this year, and 26 pipeline projects are ready to commence implementation by the first quarter of this year. Exim Bank last month signed a $100 million United States dollar facility with Credit Suisse to help complete this year 20 of the export-related factories. It is envisaged that the ID1D1F initiative will generate a total of 228,886 direct and indirect jobs. Even though the latest Ghana Living Standard Survey has recorded a drop in unemployment from 11.9% in 2015 to 7.3% in 2019, we still need to do more to create more jobs with urgency. Struggling existing businesses are also being revived and expanded under the 1D1F scheme. There's nothing contrary to the philosophy that underpins 1D1F if an already existing enterprise is helped to expand and employ more people. So, Speaker, all our plans, all our hopes, all our expectations for a brighter tomorrow will only come to fruition if we can guarantee an educated and skilled workforce. A look at the national budget gives a clear indication of where our priority lies, and it is with education. The pre-tertiary education bill, currently before Parliament, defines the priorities. Basic education is being redefined to include senior high school, and this covers vocational, agricultural, and technical schools. The emphasis is aggressively to promote science, technology, and engineering, and mathematics, STEM education across all levels of the education system. On the way, for some of the teacher unions have concerns over the proposed legislation. I would like to add my voice to that of Parliament in encouraging the union to deepen their engagement with the Ministry of Education in order to find a consensus that will enable the bill to go forward in peace. Mr. Speaker, it was a manifesto commitment to leverage technology to popularize the teaching and learning of mathematics. It was with an eye to the future that we decided to demystify mathematics and make Ghana a mathematics-friendly country. We need more engineering and technically-minded people to be able to transform the economy. We're glad to report that Ghana's teachers are supportive of the many changes that are being introduced to make these hopes a reality. Yes, the first cohort of free senior high school students are now getting ready to take their West African Senior Secondary Certificate examination test, and we look forward to them doing well. Despite the continuing hostility of a few about the merits of the free senior high school policy, I'm glad to note that it has been widely accepted by the overwhelming majority of Ghanaians. Yes, the some difficulties with infrastructure deficits, which are being vigorously addressed with the construction of 962 facilities, dormitories, dining halls, assembly halls, and classroom blocks, together with the provision of many desks and beds. But the argument about the importance of ensuring that all Ghana's children get a secondary education is irresistible. In the best of ways, the conversation should move on to the fastest way to provide laboratories and workshops to make all Ghana's children ICT competent. The conversation should move on to how quickly we can transform our children into technically minded and mathematics-loving students. The government is trying to move the conversation to technical, vocational, and educational training TVET, becoming the incentive choice for children in school. We're moving the conversation to ensure that even when an institution is designated as a technical institution, it delivers technical courses. And just in case I need to remind anyone, TVET has always been part of free SHS. Or if you prefer, call it free TVET. I'm well aware that we need a happy and contented group of teachers to ensure that the teaching and learning environment is happy and safe for our children. We have restored the teacher trainee allowances, employed 67,000 teachers, paid Tier 2 pension funds of teachers, cleared the 3-year backlog of non-promotion of teachers, abandoned the 3-month pay policy we inherited for newly recruited teachers, and cleared 92% of the legacy arrears. We have resourced the research and book allowances that were cancelled, and we have agreed to grant teachers a professional allowance. The new promotion policy for teachers, announced some 2 weeks ago, has been well received by teachers. The government is determined to restore dignity to the teaching profession. We want the teachers to accept that they hold our destinies in their hands. I'm happy to note, Mr. Speaker, the sporting activities are finding their way back into the regular school curriculum. I'm told the inter-school sporting activities are once again attaining the keen competitive edge that those of us of a certain age remember. Speaker, 10 youth and sports centers of excellence are being constructed across 10 regions of the country at Wa, Doma, Donkwa, Onofin, Ho, Koforidua, Nyinehi, Yendi, Navrongo, Axim, and Kanation. To harness and develop the entrepreneurial abilities and sporting talents of the youth. All 10 will be completed this year, and the 6 newly created regions will also be provided with the same facilities from this year. Each center will have a counseling center for entrepreneurship development, a conference center, an ICT center, a restaurant, hostel facility and offices, a FIFA standard football pitch, an 8-lane athletic track, tennis courts, multi-purpose courts for basketball, handball, tennis, volleyball, and other sporting disciplines, and a gymnasium. We're making sure there will be room for the future Alice Anums, Micah Hayes, and Baba Yaras to develop their skills. We want to make sure that when our children turn on the televisions to watch sporting programs, they will be able to find on the track and field and tracks Ghanaians competing at the highest levels. It was with considerable reluctance, Mr. Speaker, that government had to intervene in the administration of football when we decided to dissolve the old GFA because of the bribery and corruption that engulfed its operation. Government worked with FIFA, established the Normalization Committee, and helped bring a new GFA into being. I'm happy to know that football, the passion of the nation, has returned to full normalcy following the election of the new president of the Ghana Football Association, Mr. Kurt Okraku, and I congratulate him on his election. The Ghana Premier League has started, and let us all help bring back the love. Mr. Speaker, this year we're to conduct a national census, and it is incumbent on every citizen to cooperate with the Ghana Statistical Service to enable the service produce an accurate census and data for our effective socio-economic planning. Mr. Speaker, we never lose sight of the fact that there are always some people who might not be able to run life's race at the same frenetic pace as the majority of people. It is the responsibility of government always to provide the safety net that will ensure that the poor and vulnerable are not excluded from the development agenda. We will continue to improve and expand that the poor and vulnerable are not excluded from the development agenda. We'll continue to improve and expand social protection intervention to cover those who need them. It is critical that the social protection interventions are targeted at those who genuinely need them and those who would also use them to help lift themselves out of poverty. Mr. Speaker, the Ghana National Household Registry, in collaboration with the Ghana Statistical Service, is collecting data on all extremely poor households in the country through interinstitutional coordination to ensure efficiency and effectiveness in social protection spending and eliminate duplication in targeting and selection of beneficiaries for social protection programs. Mr. Speaker, let me give an example of the type of help. For the first time in the country's history, a dedicated fund of 5 million cedis to support women entrepreneurs with disability has been established. The fund, known as Presidential Empowerment for Women Entrepreneurs with Disability, is to provide financial support to 1,000 women entrepreneurs with disability in 2 years, either to establish or scale up their businesses. So far, 850 women entrepreneurs with disability across the country have benefited from the fund, which is 50% grant and 50% loan without interest. The support has enabled the women to expand their businesses and to create 180 direct jobs and many more indirect jobs. The Presidential Empowerment for Women Entrepreneurs with Disability does not only help deliver a manifesto commitment, it is also in fulfillment of SDG Goals 5, 8, and 10, which aim to ensure economic inclusion of women and to harness their talents and capabilities for national development. Speaker, we have begun the process of amending the Disability Act, Act 715, to comply with the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability, and hopefully this House will pass it before the end of the year. As part of the disability inclusive policy of government, all metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies have representations of persons with disabilities to enable them partake in local level governance. Mr. Speaker, the general health of the people is an important ingredient in making rapid development. 65,000 new healthcare personnel from 2017 to date have been recruited. The National Health Insurance Scheme is operating more adequately and is enjoying the confidence of the increasing numbers of its users, with the number of active members up from 10.6 million in 2016 to 12.3 million at the end of 2019. I remember last year, I urged Ghanaians to renew their NHIS membership by dialing *929# on any mobile phone network. I'm glad it has had an impact, as 5 million people renewed their NHIS membership through the Mobile Renewal Services platform in 2019. As the nation has made progress in eradicating the communicable diseases that used to be the main cause of mortality, we are in danger of falling into the lifestyle disease trap. Too many of us are overweight. And obesity is an increasing problem, even among young people. The foods we eat, Mr. Speaker, the foods we eat, the mode of cooking, and the lack of exercise are all now having a great impression on our health. It is time we all learn to take responsibility for our individual health and accept that our health is very much determined by our lifestyle. Speaker, one big problem we have is how we move people and goods from place to place. I'm glad to report that we're making significant and verifiable progress in the railway sector. We can now take for granted, and as part of the normal transportation routes, the rehabilitation of some of the old narrow gauge lines that have been pressed back into service. The Tema to Accra line has been operational for 2 years, and the Accra to Nsawam line would soon be. The Takoradi to Takwa line was inaugurated a few weeks ago and is proving to be very popular and being enthusiastically patronized. Mr. Speaker, there are other suburban lines that we will soon be brought into our everyday lives. Those are exciting, of course, but the big one remains the Tema to Ouagadougou, or to put it less dramatically, the Accra to Paga line. What started as the Tema to Paga railway line has become the Ghana to Burkina Faso interconnectivity project. Approximately 800 kilometers of this rail line will be in Ghana and 200 kilometers in Burkina Faso. Speaker, Ghana Cabinet has approved the final route for this line. The approximately 100-kilometer Tema to Akwamu in Pakadai line is the first section of the Tema to Ouagadougou rail line. At the environments of Juapong, a branch line from Tema to Pakadai will continue through Hohoi, Nkwanta, Dambai, Yendi, Tamale, Walewale, Nalerigu, Sheni, Bogatanga, and then to Paga as the remaining 700 kilometers of the Tema to Ouagadougou rail line. Mr. Speaker, the consultants of the project have submitted their final report, and the two governments have begun the final stage of procurement for the strategic investor. I'm confident that this year the strategic investor will be chosen. The preparation for construction has already commenced with the choice of the final route, and the acquisition of land, the right-of-way, will start immediately. The contractors have assured the government that the Tema to Pakadai line, which includes a 300-meter rail bridge over the Volta region, will be completed in August. Those who travel along the Accra to Akosombo route would testify that this is a reality, as we can all see the work being done. I hope myself to travel on that line in August. Thank you. We can safely say that the rail line journey to Paga has begun. What is going on to develop the rail network in other parts of the country? There will be activity on the Eastern Line this year, and construction will commence on the Kumasi to Nhyira via Adwadin rail line. In addition to the intercity and regional railway lines, government is committed to developing suburban rail lines and inner-city light rail to ease the oppressive traffic situation within our cities. What is obviously popularly referred to as the Western Line is receiving attention. The Kujokrom to Manso section, approximately 22-kilometer section of the line with a 350-meter viaduct, is being developed. To speed up the development of the line, the contractor has been asked to develop a new standard gauge line with the port of Takrady to convert the Takrady to Kujokrom narrow gauge into a standard gauge line, and also to continue the development of the new standard gauge line from Manso to Hulu Valley. The Kumasi section of the Western Line will also receive attention this year, since government has decided to develop the Western Line from Takrady towards Kumasi and from Kumasi towards Takrady. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to announce that the development of the Kumasi to Adwadin section of the Western Line will commence this year. Mr. Speaker, just in case there's someone here who might have missed it, I'd like to announce and inform the House that this year, the year of our Lord 2020, has been declared the year of roads. Mr. Speaker, when we declared last year, 2019, as the year of return, it was not because Africans in the diaspora had not been visiting Ghana throughout the years to reconnect with their past. We wanted to make a special year of it. We wanted to draw attention to it and inform the whole world. We considered it important. That is the idea of the year of roads. There are legitimate cases to be made for emphasis to be placed on any of the many deficits in our infrastructure. This year, this government is saying we're putting the emphasis on roads. Gradually, the backlog of debts owed to contractors is being cleared, and many of them are able to go back to the jobs to finish them. A list of some critical roads has been drawn up, and work has started on them. Some of the names of the roads on this list have featured repeatedly in various speeches before this House in the past 30 years. Some of them have been featured on lists of roads that have been claimed to have been built, but that have been turned out to have been artists' impressions. Some of the roads on the list have indeed been said to have been built by so-called reputable contractors, but they have not survived 2 rainy seasons. Mr. Speaker, I speak for all of us in this House when I say the most frequent and the most passionate complaints we get from our constituency are about roads. I therefore expect that everyone will take an interest in the work that are being done and going to be done. Let us all take an interest and ensure that we get value for money. Never again should it be that a political party or government be allowed to claim to have built a road, a school, or a hospital when they have not done so. No longer should it be permissible the project supervisors and consultants sign off on buildings and roads for contractors to be paid for shoddy work or work not done. We live in these communities where these fake projects are said to have been undertaken, and we should make it each our business to ensure the work that the work is what it claims to be, and contractors get paid for work they have indeed done. The ministry has published the list of critical roads that the government is undertaking to do, and I shall not be reciting them here. I'm sure we have all our favorite amongst the list. However, I would like to mention a few. The upgrading of the Atebubu Kwame Danso Kujokrom Road. And this would be in honor of our former Chief Justice, Justice Sophia Kufu, who once gave me a hair-raising account of a trip she took on that road. The second choice I make is the Hohoi Jasikan Dodo Pepeso stretch. We shall all be greatly relieved when it is finally done. There are others such as Benchima and Kwanta Jefua, Bogatanga Boko, Kumasi and Greater Accra inner city roads. And this is the first time that four flyovers and interchanges are being constructed at the same time in our history. Speaker, I'm sure that like the year of return, which after its success is now being declared by some as the decade of return, we'll be declaring a decade of roads until we get a road network that meets the needs of a modern industrialized Ghana. Speaker, one of the major beneficiaries of the year of return was the creative arts industry. Our commitment to the development of Ghana's creative arts industry is absolute. I inaugurated in December last year the National Film Authority, whose function it is to supervise an economically self-sustaining and culturally conscious film industry in the country. The Creative Arts Industry Bill has been presented to Cabinet for consideration, and once passed by Parliament, the Act will establish the Creative Arts Fund and an agency to promote the industry. Government has also reaffirmed its commitment to the growth of the industry by commencing the construction of the very first senior high school in Ghana dedicated solely to the development of the creative arts industry. I cut the sword for this construction in Kumasi again in December last year. We are determined to do more. Mr. Speaker, we have a good story to tell in many areas. Once moribund, derelict state enterprises have been revitalized. Let me list a few. State Housing Corporation, Ghana Publishing Corporation, Ghana Post, GIHOC, State Transport Corporation, Ghana Maritime Authority, have all been given a new lease of life and are functioning with greater efficiency and becoming again profit centers. Digitization has led to a remarkable improvement. In the delivery of public services. We are all greatly relieved, for example, that the hassle has been removed for those who want to get passports. We're equally relieved that DVLA offices are no longer the nightmare places they used to be, and we can get driver's license without having to go through Goro boys. I've not had the experience myself yet, but I'm assured that the STC has been transformed and it is now a pleasant experience to travel on their buses. SSNIT SNIT has given a guarantee that when people apply for their pensions, they would get them within 2 weeks. I'm told most people get them within 10 days, a far cry from the sad, disgraceful, and humiliating experience that pensioners used to go through to get their pensions. We've implemented a digital property address system which gives an address to every location in Ghana. We now have the first of its kind mobile money interoperability payment system in Africa. The port operates a paperless clearance system. Business registration is now online. We can now buy electricity units on our mobile phones. An e-justice system has been implemented at the courts. This process of digitization is also helping to curb corruption. Mr. Speaker, for the first time in many years, Ghana has a fully functioning emergency response and ambulance system. As promised, government has procured 307 ambulances with one assigned to each constituency. Each ambulance has a tracker that determines its location instantly from the command center. The emergency number 112 has also been linked to the Ghana Post GPS system, such that if any call to the number is made using the Ghana Post GPS app, emergency services will know the exact location of the caller instantly. We're employing drones to deliver emergency medical supplies in remote areas. And today, Ghana has the largest medical drone delivery service in the world. Mr. Speaker, when the Electoral Commission begins the registration exercise for the compilation of a new voters register in the course of the year, I appeal to all Ghanaians to register. It is our civic responsibility to do so. Ghana, Mr. Speaker, as she has done periodically since 1992, is going to conduct on 7th December a general election so that our people can choose the person and persons they want to manage the affairs of the nation on their behalf. This will be the 8th general election of our history in the 4th Republic. Government, together with all stakeholders, is determined to ensure that it is peaceful and orderly so that our people can make their choice in freedom and serenity and exercise their civic duty of helping to elect a government of their choice on 7th December. We should all commit ourselves to uphold the reputation of our nation as a beacon of democracy, and we expect the media to help lead the way in that regard. Mr. Speaker, despite the achievements of this government, some of which I've outlined, I hasten to add that we still have some way to go to reach the Ghana we want. 3 years ago, when I first stood before you, I said, and I quote, "I was not elected by the overwhelming majority of the Ghanaian people to complain. I was elected to get things done. I was elected to fix what is broken, and my government and I are determined to do just that." unquote. Speaker, we have done just that. We have fixed the broken economy. We have delivered free senior high school education. We have brought the National Health Insurance System scheme back to life. We have revamped our agriculture. We have sanitized the banking sector. Our industrial transformation is on. We are digitizing the economy. And Ghana continues to be at peace. We have done much more than we inherited. We are creating conditions for young people to have hope again. And we are determined to do more. Things are working in Ghana. And Ghana is surely changing. Mr. Speaker, the message of the state of the nation is that our nation is in good health and in good, competent hands. May God bless us all in our homeland, Ghana, and make her great and strong. I thank you for your attention. Mr. Speaker, my party and I know the nature of the task before us on the 7th of December, and that is to occupy all DC. That's our task.
So those are live from Parliament. We've been following the President's State of the Nation address delivery. We started at 10:47. We're through at 12:41. You're live on the Joy News channel, on your multi-TV, and also on your digital TV. We're on Joy 99.7 FM. My name is Gifty Andopia, and I am here. Actually, 12:15. I beg your pardon. 12:15. 12:14 was when he finished. It is 12:15 at the moment. 12:14. Let's go to Parliament and hear some sounds for you, and then we'll come back and have a conversation. Well, earlier I wanted you to listen to some song they were singing. The members of Parliament there were singing. We'll take you back there. We understand that the Speaker is on the floor. The President has finished the delivery of the State of the Nation address. As and when the Speaker speaks, we'll bring you there. But I'll take your general assessment, Mr. Banson. It's been a very long moment in Parliament with the minority heckling with the anthem, and then they subsequently leave the House, and then, you know, their printed papers were destroyed. The majority leaders move to fill in their seats. I'll take your thoughts, but the Speaker is speaking right.
On behalf of the entire House, I wish to congratulate His Excellency, the President, for his wonderful address. We pray that the good Lord will oblige all his wishes, including the latest one he made of full occupation of this honorable House. Honorable members, in accordance with Standing Order 58, I wish to convey to His Excellency, the President, of our continuing support for all good works. And I seize the opportunity to once more appreciate the presence of the armed forces of the Republic who have given us security this morning, as well as other security agencies and our own internal security, for all the services they have ensured the smooth success of this function. We also wish to acknowledge at this juncture the presence of the former Chief Justice of the Republic, Her Lordship, Mrs. Georgina Wood. We have a number of senior ministers and top officials who we claim to be one of our own, including the Honorable Senior Minister, Honorable Osafo Mafu, the Honorable Cecilia Dapaya, the Honorable Gifty Kusi, Honorable Natoshi Ado, Honorable Sam Okujeto, Honorable Kwacho Kwote, and Honorable Kandapa. And definitely, not the least, Honorable U.T. Mensah. Honorable members, again and in accordance with our practice, a formal communication will be sent to His Excellency the President after the House has debated his message. The full date on the message will commence on a date determined by the Business Committee of this Honorable House. At this juncture, may I ask the Honorable Majority Leader, Leader of the House, and Minister of Government Business, to give us any further indication.
Speaker, Article 67 of the 1992 Republican Constitution provides for the President to deliver to the Republic a message on the state of the nation. Speaker, as you all do know, Article 34, Sub 2 provides the ingredients of the menu to be set. Today, the President of the Republic has done what is required and indeed provided much more information. Speaker, it is instructive to note that this House today has witnessed one of the most dignified atmospheres for the delivery of the message the state of the nation in recent times. Mr. Speaker, serenity, tranquility, worthy of the dignity of the House has prevailed. And I believe those with discerning spirits, Mr. Speaker, would understand why the dignity of the House has not been assailed today. Mr. Speaker, the practice of this House is to stand down the debate on the President's message. And indeed, the Business Committee meeting this morning has programmed the debate to commence on Tuesday next week. It will span 1 week, and the ensuing week, Tuesday, the leaders of the House would wind up the debate. Mr. Speaker, the House is made up of two sides. Today I see two sides. And the sides who heard the president would participate in the debate. The speaker, listening to the House, to the president's message, I believe is not confined to the House. Those who are everywhere who heard, who would want to engage in the debate will be welcome. Mr. Speaker, having discharged this responsibility today and in conformity with practice, the House would normally adjourn to say of the President. But that duty, Mr. Speaker, is in the charge of the Speakership. But if you invite me, Mr. Speaker, I would want to accordingly move that the House stands adjourned, having listened to His Excellency until tomorrow, 10 o'clock in the forenoon. Speaker, I so move.
Who seconds the motion?
Mr. Speaker, I beg to second the motion every moved by the majority leader and the leader of the House that the House stands adjourned to tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the forenoon. I so move. Second the motion. Thank you.
Honorable members, the motion for adjournment has been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. And this Honorable House will stand adjourned till tomorrow, 10 o'clock in the forenoon. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, honorable members.
President Akufo-Addo there, ready to make his way out of Parliament. The State of the Nation address indeed has been delivered, it's over, and the national anthem is being played once again. So just so you know, what's been happening in Parliament is that the President has been delivering the State of the Nation address, and before that there was the national anthem that ended with the minority repeating the part that says, "Help us to resist oppressors' rule," about 3 times before they then walked out of Parliament, leaving behind their printed papers that has the various grievances that they have against the government. Those papers were subsequently removed. They moved out. The majority members of Parliament moved in to fill the seats that they had left, and then the program started. President Akufo-Addo has just finished. He talked about the year of return first. We went on to talk about Ghana's foreign relations. He talked about the economy, the financial sector, and we'll go into details of all of those things. And then he talks about peace in the northern part of Ghana, what his government has done about it. He spoke about the security agencies in the country and how his government is supporting them. And then he spoke about galamsey, which is going to be one of the biggest topics of discussion after this. He also talked about corruption, not too much details there. He talked about the Zongo Development Fund, went to talk about sanitation, and then agriculture. If you're watching, you will see the president shaking hands and exchanging pleasantries just on his way out. He talked about the fishing sector as well, then mining, bauxite, etc. He talked about Dumso, 1 district, 1 factory. He went on to bring in education. This time we didn't hear too much about the free SHS, but certainly some details there as well. He talked about sports. He went on to talk about roads, about health, and then about creative arts. And then he brings in the ambulances. He goes on and on. I still have here in the studio Mr. Banson, who's helping us with some of the analysis, his own thoughts. What is your state of the nation? You want to share that with us on our social media platforms. Go to Facebook, and also you can send us a WhatsApp message on 0540 109009. MFR Powell will be here in the studio to read for us what you've been sending us as far as what your own state of the nation is. Daniel Dazi is on the ground. We'll be joining him also shortly to tell us what it is like there in Parliament. Well, what did the minority members of Parliament go to do? Did they go to sit in their offices to watch on TV? Or were they watching, were they listening to radio to follow? How are they even going to be a part of the debates that will follow? Let me come to you, Mr. Bansim. What jumps at you generally so far?
Well, I as expected, the president seemed to have touched on all the trending issues in the economy as a date, or in the country as a date. I noticed that the issues that were not very comfortable for him or for his political party, they did not go into details. They made a blank statement on that. For instance, when it comes to the galamsey issue, he did not touch on specifically on the missing excavators. He only said that those who have been involved in any illegality, the law will take its course, irrespective of your political affiliation, which it's a good statement, but it's, from the experience, the background before the happening, we would have expected a little bit more.
What did you say? Because I have here my notes that I took when the president was speaking, and I put a subject and then I write what I want to write. If I look at all that I've written, in fact, galamsey took a lot of my paper.
Yes.
So he actually said a lot, but it looks as if he decided to focus more on the problem and dealing with the problem rather than dealing with the excavators, which has been the most thorny part of this conversation so far.
Yes.
Wouldn't you say that is a progressive thing to do?
Well, and that is where he threw a jab that the NDC has given up. Those were his words, or had given up on the fight against galamsey, which I don't think is a very fair statement, because we saw this interministerial task force was in existence during, I think it was Honorable Fuseni's time, and they also did some, Innis of Fuseni before they left. But be that as it may, he started by saying that the interministerial committee had worked very hard.
Just to interrupt you again. So when the president said this morning, I was listening to Sami Uku on radio, on the Super Morning Show. He indicated that the NDC had given up, and he linked that to a story on myjoyonline.com that had been done back then, where Mahama Yariga had indicated that government, there was a story something to the effect that government, says we can't deal with this anymore. So I think that's what he was referring to. I am very sure that's what he was referring to back then. But please go on and
very
we'll
well.
go to that.
I think